Buckle in, sports fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show. The program will be starting in just a couple of minutes, so grab your popcorn and get ready to enjoy the show. While you're waiting, make sure you're following us on social media at WHBC Stream and staying tuned to WHBCStream.com. We're so glad to have you today on the program, and we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a line on Twitter or call the show 352-639-0036. And thanks again for tuning in.
HBC. Well, it's a good evening to you, and how you be? William Haynes here, you there at 10:04 with 14 seconds to go along with it. You're listening to the William Haynes Show on WHBC, talking everything MLB baseball. Rays win tonight by a score of 5-2, completing their two-game sweep of the Atlanta Braves. At the Trop, they will head tomorrow to Atlanta for another two-game set, so I guess more of a four-game series, but really individually two games. So we got the first sweep. The Rays advance to 4-1 on the year. They've won four straight following opening day, so we'll talk about all that, talk about everything that went down tonight's game. Remember, we are taking your calls for everyone listening. The phone line is open at 352-639-0036. At WHBC Stream is the Twitter. You add us there and ask a question, and we'll read it on the air. There's also a chat built into Spreaker.com where you're listening to the stream. On the monitor, we do have the Astros and Dodgers. Bottom of the fourth, it is the home team, the Houston Astros, up by a score of 1-0. We've also had some scores that have gone final. We'll give you the updates on those at each 20-minute increment on the 2020 Sports Update, including a doubleheader today in Cleveland. Also have some news to go over, a lot of stuff that broke today as far as the Marlins situation and the first real outbreak of the season for COVID-19. And I guess we'll start there. We do have the 5-2 Rays win to get into. Was Yonny Chirinos getting his first start of the year, going 4 innings scoreless. Did give up a run, but it was unearned. A G-Man Choi injury. He's day-to-day with a shoulder. We will wait to hear more about that. We'll give you updates on that as well as we go along. I'll give the phone number to you one more time before we get into things. The phone number, we got a line open, 352-639-0036. We've got a line open, and at WHBC Stream is the Twitter. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is the MLB scheduling changes. Of course, on opening weekend, it was the Miami Marlins in Philly taking on the Phillies. The Marlins won that series, in fact, by 2 games. They took 2 out of the 3, I should say. But after the fact, there was a bunch of positive tests on the Marlins side. I don't know where it started. It was a handful, and then it went up to 10. Now I believe players and personnel included, the number was 17 positive cases on the Miami Marlins. So they were quarantining in Philadelphia. I don't actually know if they're still there now or if they had headed back to Miami. They were scheduled to play a game yesterday in Miami against the Orioles, but that game was, of course, canceled. And then tonight's game, of course, that same game against the Orioles was canceled as well. And then on the other side of things, the Philadelphia Phillies, who were supposed to be playing the Yankees yesterday and tonight as well in Philadelphia, those games were called off because they wanted to see if they had contracted the COVID-19 virus, of course, from those Miami Marlins players. And while the Phillies had no positive cases, that was good news. According to the CDC, incubation for the coronavirus can take up to 14 days. So basically meaning that any positive cases that may have come from a Miami Marlin, we may not know for the next couple of weeks. The MLB, after getting kind of crushed yesterday for being a little bit indecisive, they waited a while to cancel the games, and it was up in the air whether the season would continue at all. They've come out today and said firmly, I would say, that they're committed to continuing the season. They knew that this kind of stuff was going to happen when they started back up, and it was a risk that they were willing to take. They are not committed to every team playing 60 games, and it has come out today that the playoff standings will be determined by winning percentage if each team does not have 60 games played. So it won't be by wins, it'll just be by win percentage. It could go either way on how much that benefits or doesn't a team. I don't think that part as much matters. And also another news item that came out today from this story is the Miami Marlins will not play another game this week. That is through Sunday. And I think that was the result of the Nationals, who are scheduled to play in Miami this weekend. Basically, they voted in the clubhouse, I guess, and they came out and said publicly that they were not comfortable playing the Marlins. And can you blame them? And I think the MLB made the right move and basically just kind of postponing the Marlins games for the rest of the week. Unknown how they're going to try and make up these contests, double headers potentially, but I think they want to avoid those if they can. Of course, the whole point of the extra inning rules and being more aggressive, getting out of the park on rain delays, is to keep players from being in close proximity for long periods of time. That was a concern. That was in the health and safety protocols as to the virus is more easily contractable if these players are with each other for longer periods of time. So I don't know if double headers, but they're gonna have to make up these games somehow, unless they just plan on having the Marlins play like 10. Potentially less games, probably not 10, but maybe in the range of 5 to 6 less games than these other clubs. Competitively, I don't know if this is a big story. The Marlins did take 2 of 3 in Philadelphia this weekend, a Phillies team that we had anticipated that would be pretty decent. The Marlins have made some good additions, but I mean, obviously still a couple, maybe even a few years away on their rebuild. Hard to say. There's definitely whatever momentum they gained in that weekend series certainly is out of the window now. I don't know. I don't think the players that tested positive were necessarily big name, but I mean, 17 people that tested positive, that's pretty much decimating your roster. And that was something that the MLB commissioner, Rob Manfred, had come out and said on MLB Network, saying that, we're not going to ask these teams to play if they're at a significant competitive advantage if they can't field a proper team. Now, each team does have a there is no minor league baseball, but they do have in one of their minor league facilities a camp going of players in their 60-man pool that are staying game ready in case they need to be called up. COVID-19 news for the Rays is all sidestep to that. Actually, just to finish up this story, we talked about the Marlins and Orioles. That series is called off. No Marlins baseball for the rest of the week. The Phillies are not going to play also, even though they had no positive test. The Yankees, who flew in to Philly last night, or I think the day before, they have gone back to the Bronx, and they were supposed to be 2 games in Philly and then 2 games in the Bronx in Yankee Stadium against the Phillies, so like 4 games in 4 days against that team. That is called off, but will happen. That 2-game series that was supposed to happen in Yankee Stadium will instead be replaced by a 2-game series in Camden Yards in Baltimore against the Orioles. So A good move on the MLB to match up those teams who had no games to play. I think that was a good move on their part, unaware as to how that's, I guess, going to... that's a couple extra American League East games than the Yankees or Orioles were scheduled to play. At this point, we can bellyache about that stuff. If you're a fan of either one of those teams, whatever. I think all that stuff gets thrown out of the window. You have to do whatever you can to get games played at this point. And a lot of that conventional stuff. We didn't play 60 games, or we played more, or maybe even less divisional games than these other teams. I think everyone's going to have to make sacrifices if this season is going to continue. And they did take a little bit of a beating from that crowd. I'm not sure exactly which crowd it is, if it's the sports media or kind of the woke people that are saying, this season should have never been played. Too much risk. It's never going to get finished. And while I agree they should not have started this season if they were not confident that it could be completed, they made the decision. They knew that they were going to lose some fans if they didn't get the season in. They had advertising money on the line, things like that. Players, owners, everyone wanted to get paid. And I think now that they put this much money into it, they're going to do everything in their power to get this season finished. Thankfully, it's only a couple of months, but it's not great news that after the first weekend of MLB action, we already have a COVID-19 blow-up with the Marlins. And now sidestepping a little bit over to some Rays COVID-19 news. Both Randy Arozarena, a center fielder, and Austin Meadows have been cleared. So that means they've tested negative twice in a row for COVID-19. So they have been cleared to play. Austin Meadows, the past day or so, I believe, has been in Port Charlotte with that 60-man pool trying to get ramped back up. Certainly, I think a guy that the Rays would love to have back in that leadoff spot, as the guy who was there tonight, Ji-Man Choi, went 0 for 4 and also had a shoulder injury in the process, a couple of errors over there at first base as well. So a couple things to talk about from that standpoint as we get into the Rays 5-2 victory. We'll probably get into that after we come back from the break after 10:20. So if you're listening, don't go anywhere. Remember, you can call the show 352-639-0036 at WHBC Stream. Is the Twitter. The Spreaker chat is open as well. Send us a message and it will be read on the air. Any questions, any thoughts you have about the Rays? Great site. I think after that tough opening day loss for them to win the next 4, just like they did last year, I think this is the Rays are for real, of course, and they look really good to start the season. Especially getting Austin Meadows back, and then Aranda Arozarena. I'm not sure how he's going to fit into that mix. The Rays already have. They're pretty set on outfielders, but he looked really good in spring training, took a lot of pitches. He's also really quick on the base path. I'm not sure defensively. I didn't watch a ton of spring training games of the few that were televised, so I don't know from that standpoint, but I know he was impressive at the plate, so maybe he'll be in the mix here shortly as well. Of course, expanded rosters. It is 30 players for, at this point, about the next week and a half, so... So he could, maybe the Rays find a way to squeeze him in. I think they went with 16 pitchers. And the relievers tonight, as we'll talk about, as I said, were really good as well. Another news item that we have today that just went live before we came on the show. It is Joey Bosa, the defensive end for the now Los Angeles Chargers. 5 years, $135 million, 102 of that is guaranteed, which is a record for any defensive player. So I guess congratulations to him. He was a guy that had held out, I believe, through training camp and I think even into the regular season upon being drafted by, I think, the then San Diego Chargers. So kind of funny to see Joey Bosa committed to getting that money. Good for the Chargers, keeping him around. Unlike what the Jets did, trading Jamal Adams to the Cowboys. I know we haven't really talked about it on the show. We've been kind of consumed by the MLB getting started back up. Maybe over the course of the next hour or so that we're on, we'll talk about that Jamal Adams trade. There's a ton, of course, to break down there. Let's see. Actually, we're going to go to the 2020 sports break a little bit early, a couple minutes early. We'll give you all the scores, and then after a short break, we will come back and break down the Rays tonight's 5-2 win. So a little bit of a break, but we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Here is the sports update. HBC. Several games that already went final. As we mentioned, the Marlins-Orioles and the Phillies-Yankees games were postponed. The Tigers beat the Royals by a score of 4-3. The Cubs edge out another win over the Reds, this time by a score of 8-5. The Blue Jays now a 5-1 win over the Nationals. They have taken that series victory. In the first game of the doubleheader in Cleveland, it's the Indians 4-3 over the White Sox. Some games currently in action, mid-ninth inning. 3 outs left for the Red Sox to come back. They're down 8-2 to the New York Mets. Also in the bottom of the 8th inning, it is the Pirates up on the Brewers 8-6. And then in the second game of the doubleheader in Cleveland, it is the Indians once again on top in the 8th inning, 5-3 over the White Sox. In Minnesota, it is the Twins 6, Cardinals 2. In the third inning, Diamondbacks up 3-0 on the Rangers. Also in the third inning in Houston, it is the Astros up 2-0 on the Dodgers. Walker Buehler on the mound for LA. And then some games that have just gotten underway on the West Coast. First inning, no score, Mariners at Angels. Also in the first, no score, Rockies at Athletics. And a score here in the bottom of the first in San Francisco. It is the Giants up 1-0 on the Padres. We will be right back.
Hey, sports fans. William's currently in the can, but he'll be right back. We're currently on a commercial break, so don't touch that dial. Remember, you can call us at 352-639-0036 or drop us a line on Twitter at WHBC Stream to tell us what's on your mind. We want to talk sports. We want to get unruly. We want you to tell us what you think so we can argue. Anyway, when all that's said and done, please stay tuned for William's world-famous Around the XFL podcast and other projects that he's currently got in the works. Please visit WHBCstream.com, and thanks again for listening in.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM. Sports Radio 636. Sports Radio
HBC. And at 10:20, we are back on the William Haynes Show, breaking down tonight's Rays win. It was a score of 5-2, completed a 2-game sweep over the Atlanta Braves. Something I wanted to get into real quick, some updates from Mark Tompkin since we went live. Kevin Cash saying they are really encouraged by the starters the first time through. The order, of course, Charlie Morton looked a little bit rough. He'll get a start tomorrow. He went 4+ against the Blue Jays. It was Ryan Yarbrough going 5 1/3. He was probably the best out of that group, looked really good. And he could go even further his next time up, also in that Atlanta series on Thursday. And then it was Blake Snell going 2 innings. Tyler Glasnow, I believe he went 4 but struck out 9. He looked absolutely nasty. And then tonight it was Yonny Chirinos going 4 innings as well, looking like his old self. So the first time through the rotation looks good. And then an update on G-Man Choi. Kevin Cash said he jammed his right shoulder on a play in the field. I think that was an error as well for Choi, 1 of 2 on the night. They don't think it's anything major. They do have some options at first base, which we'll talk about. But without further ado, let's get into the Rays, their win tonight. As we said, They get a 2-game sweep over the Braves. A couple notes that I made pregame. It was day off for a couple of guys. Willie Thomas got the day off, a rare day off, as they do not have really anyone else that's a natural shortstop. It was the versatile infielder Joey Wendell getting the start there. He did make some nice plays defensively, and then he also did drive in a run on an RBI single. And then it was Mike Zunino. I'm not sure if you call it a day off or just rotating the catchers, as they have played all three, including in the same game a couple of times already. But it was Michael Perez getting the start at catcher tonight. He did not do anything offensively, batting ninth. The lefty was 0 for 3, and I guess he did okay behind the plate. I don't believe any pass balls or anything like that. And then, of course, as we mentioned, the Yanni Chirino start. It was a scoreless game early. The Braves struck first. It was a man that reached base via an error. I think it was Ji-Man Choi that made the error. That was the first of his two. So the Braves take another 1-0 lead. And then in the fourth inning, I want to say, it was in the bottom of that third inning after giving up the one unearned run. It was the Rays scoring 5 in one inning, just like they did last night, scoring 8 runs in an inning. They scored 5 runs in the third here tonight. A couple of walks and some singles for guys. It was a 2 RBI single to get the scoring started for Yoshi Tsutsugo, and then an RBI single for Martinez, and then an RBI single for Joey Wendell. And then Jose Martinez came across to score on a wild pitch, so that's how we got to the 4 runs. And then for the Braves, as we said, it was an unearned run off of Yanni Chirinos, and the second one came later in the game, an unearned run off of Ryan Thompson, another guy that had reached base via an error and came across to score. So 2 runs given up by the Rays, neither of them earned. So another good outing by the pitching staff, a decent start, I think, where we are at this point in the season. And then the bullpen has continued to impress, just as they did in the beginning of last season. As we said, Ji-Man Choi, he's day-to-day with that right shoulder injury. 2 errors as well in the field. Mike Brasso replaced him in the 9th inning. I don't think that's the answer at first base, but he did come in as a defensive replacement and I guess looked okay. Brasso, a guy that can probably play all across the infield as well. So I guess we'll transition that, talking about now where the Rays go from here on out. At first base, they what they could do, as Ji-Man Choi is usually the first baseman against right-handed pitchers, as he is mainly a lefty bat, but has now introduced himself as a switch hitter. They could bring up Nate Lowe. He was a guy that played first base last year, a good power hitter. He has dropped some weight, wanted to play a little bit of third base to try and get time wherever he could, but I assume that he can still play some first base. So that would be an option there. If they wanted to bring him up, they would probably have to put Ji-Man Choi in the injury list, which obviously they're not going to do if Kevin Cash says that it is a day-to-day injury. So at that point, you go with a guy like Yandy Diaz, who's played some first base already this year, but he is a right-handed bat. So the guy that they've only been playing at first against left-handed starters, I believe, which they've only faced one of those. That was on opening night against Hyunjin Ryu. And then Yoshi Tsutsugo, a guy who has not played third base, I believe, this season, but I think that's what he did in Japan. This year for the Rays, it's only been third base, left field, and he has also DH'd as well. So that would probably be the 2 options that I would see. I don't think they have anyone else that they feel super comfortable with at first base. If they put Mike Brasso there as the defensive replacement, maybe they want to give him a start or 2. He's more of a defensive player. Certainly, I mean, not a great bat, but, not the worst, but more of a defensive replacement type player at this point for him right now. And that's about it. So, I mean, hopefully, if it's really a day-to-day thing, he'll be back in no time. But I think the 2 errors in the field was a little bit disconcerting. Did not look good at the plate. And Ji-Man Choi, in 15 at-bats, he is batting 133. A 316 on base percentage to his credit. I mean, I know Rays fans are excited that he hit a home run, his first of the year from the right side of the plate. That game on Sunday, he did have a pretty good day. But as far as in the leadoff spot, I heard them talking about it on the radio broadcast tonight with Dave and Andy. Ji-Man Choi does not work a good first at-bat, and that is not the guy that you want hitting leadoff. A guy like Austin Meadows, hopefully the Rays can get back soon. I think they're going to try, especially now, Brandon Lau in the leadoff spot, getting the lefty bat against right-handed starters, as he is look good, pretty much the best hitter. And 17 at-bats, Brandon Lau is batting .412 with a 500 on-base percentage. So I think he will probably bat leadoff tomorrow, if I had to guess, against the right-handed starter, Mike Soroka, who had a nice first start against the Mets a few days ago. So probably Yandy Diaz at first base tomorrow. Jose Martinez, I'm not sure if he's played first. I think he has played first and third for the Cardinals. The Rays have not used him in the field a lot, pretty much as just DH, so that pretty much tells me they do not love his defensive ability. So I think they'll kind of mix and match that. But I'm not sure where they want to go from here with Ji-Man Choi. He's played outfield for other teams. I'm not saying you move him off of first base, but I think you maybe start looking at other places to put him. He was good defensively last year. Already some errors over there this year, and now the shoulder injury. I don't really know what that means. I think that's kind of a wait-and-see type of thing. But I think the Rays are going to maybe experiment doing some different stuff. But they do have Yandy Diaz, a guy who's comfortable over there at first. I would say more so than third base, which is where he played tonight. So I think you move Yoshi down to third and then put Yandy over at first. No matter if the starter is righty or lefty, I don't think they have much of a choice unless they want to bring up Nate Lau. But of course, as we said, you'd have to put someone on the injured list to make a spot on the 30-man, which I don't believe that they are going to do. Also, talking about the Rays pitchers tonight, as we said, Yonny Chirinos looked good. He went 4 innings pitched, 4 hits, 2 walks, struck out 4, and gave up that unearned run. And this is a good place to remind you, you can call the show 352-639-0036. We've got a line open if you want to share your Rays thoughts with us and all of our listeners. At WHBC Stream is the Twitter, so give us a follow. The link immediately goes out on there when we go live, and you can also tweet us your thoughts on there as well. And then, of course, the chat on Spreaker.com where you're listening to the stream. You can post your thoughts there as well. So Yonny Chirinos went for, 68 pitches, 41 of them were for strikes. So he threw 63, I want to say, in a simulated game to get ready for this start. So it looks like they're probably going to build him up slowly, I would say. So I think maybe if you can get 80 pitches out of him in his next outing, that would probably be good for 5-6 innings as they continue to get their starting rotation built back up. They are in no rush to do that, I know, because of the bullpen, and they've been looking good, but I think eventually you want to think about getting those starters really stretched out. Not in a rush like some other teams are, like the Red Sox and the Mets, as that game has just gone final. In fact, the Mets picking up an 8-3 win, and wow, the Red Sox dropping to 1-4. They have been clobbered in every single game between the Orioles and the Mets following their opening day win. So I predicted the Red Sox weren't going to be good, but I did not know that they were going to be this bad, at least right now. Boy, the pitching has been bad, and good for the Mets. The starting pitcher we'll talk about in his first major league start, I think he went 5 innings, giving up only a couple of runs, so that's good for the Mets, a good sign. I know there was some talk whether or not they should move Seth Lugo into the starting rotation. We'll probably push that conversation a little bit back, as we'll probably be taking you until, I don't know, maybe 11:30 or so, depending on how the show goes. I get some colors in here, all that good stuff. Yonny Chirinos, as we said, went 4 innings, looked good, only 68 pitches, so he could have gone deeper if he was more stretched out. So I think in a perfect world, we would have been looking at a probably 6 or 7 inning gem from Chirinos. Comes to mind his first start last year at home against the Astros. He went 7 innings in the final game of that 4-game set that the Rays took 3-1 to start that season. Peter Fairbanks came in, pitched a scoreless frame in the 5th, and then it was Ryan Thompson pitching an inning and 2/3. He did give up an unearned run, no hits, walked a couple, threw the ball 37 times, but this was only his second outing, I believe, following opening day, so certainly was ready for it. He will not be in the mix, I assume, for the next 2 games in Atlanta, but the Rays have some other relievers that they can use instead, of course. And then it was Nick Anderson that came in to get the final out of that second inning that Ryan Thompson pitched the Rays. It was 5-2 at that point, and I can't blame him for just trying to shut it down. Nick Anderson, probably their most important bullpen piece. They do have a lot of good guys in the back end, but Nick Anderson got an out. He gave up a hit, but then struck out the next man, and only threw 8 pitches in the process. So I would take it, as he did not pitch yesterday, that he would be good to go tomorrow in high leverage spot should they need him. Chaz Rowe pitched a scoreless 8th inning, a couple of strikeouts, 13 pitches for him. So Chaz Rowe really has continued to look good. I know he pitched in the top of that 10th inning on Sunday, gave up that unearned run, the runner on second base, but otherwise got out of it. And then, of course, tonight pitching a scoreless 8th. And then it was Oliver Drake picking up his second save of the year, going an inning pitched. 11 pitches, 10 of which were for strikes. That cutter looked as good as it ever has. A guy that Kevin Cash said, the right-handed pitching, Oliver Drake, was one of their best guys that could get lefties out. Of course, after the lefty Colin Poche went down with that torn UCL, he'll be out probably, they're saying, until 2022 in all likelihood. But the Rays, obviously, their bullpen is really good, and they've got, I think, plenty to carry them in that regard. And I think as the starting rotation gets stretched back out, they'll be in good shape. As far as, I mean, the bullpen is going to carry the team, or going to carry the pitching staff right now, and I think that those roles will kind of flip. If you got guys like Charlie Morton, Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, and even Ryan Yarbrough to an extent going deep into ball games, give that bullpen a little bit of a rest. They're going to be playing games, I think, the first 30 or so without an off day, so that is not ideal. As we preview, I guess we'll get into it a little bit. Do we have anything left to talk about? No, not really from tonight's game. They did win by a score of 5-2 and swept the Braves in a 2-game set. They will fly to Atlanta tomorrow instead of flying tonight. That's going to be the protocol when they go to Atlanta here, and also to Miami. They're going to fly the day of the game, just to prevent the extra night in a hotel room. And especially against the Marlins, if they even get their season back up and running. I think, that's a good move. So they will fly to Atlanta tomorrow. It'll be Charlie Morton v. Mike Soroka. Charlie Morton, of course, went 4+ on opening day against the Blue Jays, gave up 7 hits, struck out 4, walked a man, and 6 earned runs. It was that, I think, 3-run homer by, it was Cavan Biggio, I want to say, that knocked him out of the game as he came out to start the 5th. Probably the only managerial bluff or blunder by Kevin Cash, if you had to pick one. Was not a fan of that move. And then on the other side, Mike Soroka, I guess the ace of this Braves rotation, and it wasn't what they thought it was going to be. Cole Hamels goes down, Felix Hernandez opts out, and then Folty, the pitcher who started for the Braves last night, he got DFA'd by the Braves. So obviously they had enough. Of course, he was the guy that gave up 7 earned runs in the first inning of the NLDS Game 5 against those Cardinals last season, and then coming out this year to start the year did not look great. I will say he did look like he had lost a lot of weight. His fastball topped out at about 89, in contrast to a 93-mile-an-hour changeup for Glasnow. So Glasnow's changeup was faster than Folty's fastball. So unsure where Folty future lies ahead. The Dodgers just tied it up here in the 5th. It's now 2-2. Justin Turner is going to bat with the bases loaded and 1 out. Enoli Paredes is a reliever on for Houston, so their bullpen, obviously not the strength of that team, and no longer the starting rotation either. No Justin Verlander, no Garrett Cole. It is just, I guess now, just Zach Greinke and Lance McCullers Jr. Headlining that rotation. So I think in a competitive American League West, I think this is a great shot for the Athletics to make a move and jump and get some space in first place. The Angels will have some time to straighten things out, especially as they get Anthony Rendon back. And then the Rangers without Corey Kluber, they didn't look great to start the year. I don't know. I might be out on the Rangers. I'll give them a little bit more time. Then, of course, the Mariners aren't going to do anything this year. So the Astros, just by nature of this playoff format this year, I'm sure they'll still make it, but not the same team they were a year ago. I turned this game on because I was expecting to be a lot of a beating of some Astro hitters, but I don't think that Walker Buehler did any of that I've seen. That probably would have been making some headlines if that was the case. But just to see the Dodgers get some revenge, of course, that 2017 World Series, that the Astros, it was proven that they cheated in that series. So an invalid championship that cost the Dodgers a ring that they could have won legitimately. Very unfortunate, of course. It is now Cody Bellinger batting with the bases loaded, as I think Justin Turner worked a walk. So the Dodgers now lead 3-2. I think they're going to bust this game open right here. Cody Bellinger, bases loaded, 1 out, up a run. We'll keep our eye on that. And then we're approaching another 2020 sports break. I did kind of blow through some of this stuff pretty quick, so I think we'll just take you up until the 11 o'clock hour. Remember, you can call the show 352-639-0036. At WHBC Stream is the Twitter. So I'll look to see if there's any more news. And then if you want to call in with your Rays thoughts, that would be great as well. And then maybe break down and crack open some of these box scores to see what's what. Impressive for the Blue Jays. They have already taken 2 from the Nationals, who have dropped to 1-4. So the Blue Jays getting back over 500 at 3-2. Definitely a dangerous team. They've been looking nasty against the Nats here. Tanner Rourke getting the win for Toronto, and Austin Voth getting the loss for the Nats. Some other games that have went final that I mentioned on the last sports update. It was the Cubs once again picking up a win over the Reds by a score of 8-5. So kind of similar fashion. Mills getting the win for the Cubs. Reed the loss for the Reds. And then a game that's probably not super important. The Tigers, though, are above 500. They win over the Royals tonight by a score of 4-3. It was Alexander getting the win for the Tigers. I'm not familiar with any of those Tigers pitchers. And then the Indians get a win in that first game of the doubleheader. Savali getting the win. Brad Hand, his second save already. Looking for other games that have gone final. Also, the second game of the doubleheader. So Cleveland swept the doubleheader today over the White Sox. It was Adam Plutko getting the win until the save. Radon getting the loss for the White Sox. So the White Sox, a team that were anticipated to make the playoffs in the AL Central, have dropped to 1-4. And now the Cleveland Indians, a team that I said to watch out for, the window is closing, but it is not shut yet, are 4-1 here in the early goings. And the Pirates getting some revenge. If you listen to the very end of last night's show, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The Pirates blew a 5-1 lead, and the Brewers actually won that game in the 11th inning, the first extra inning game this year that has gone past the 10th. So that was a nice little bit of, I can't think of the word, but some nice precedent, I guess, for what happens when the game goes past the 10th. It was Hartley getting the win for the Pirates. Nick Birdie the save. So now both of those teams are at 2-3 in a middling National League Central. Other games that I went final, as we mentioned, the Mets 8-3 over the Red Sox. That's a game that I'm going to want to talk about. Peterson, the rookie, his first major league start. He gets the win, and then Hall the loss for the Red Sox. And I believe those are all the games that have gone final. So we're going to take a quick break. 2020 Sports Update, get you caught up on all the scores Remember, you can call the show 352-639-0036 at WHBC Stream is the Twitter. Here is the update. HBC. Some current MLB action going on right now. In the top of the 8th inning, it is the Twins over the Cardinals 6-3. And the 5th is the Diamondbacks over the Rangers 3-0. In the 5th inning, the Dodgers have now taken a 4-2 lead in the Astros. They are still looking to pile on. In the 3rd inning, it's the Angels up 2-0 on the Mariners. Also in the 3rd, the Rockies now up 1-0 on the Athletics. They got runners on the corners with 1 out. Also in the 3rd inning, the Padres have taken the lead over the Giants by a score of 3-1. The Padres first place in the National League West over the Dodgers. We will be right back.
Hey, sports fans! William's currently in the can, but he'll be right back. We're currently on a commercial break, so don't touch that dial. Remember, you can call us at 352-639-0036 or drop us a line on Twitter at WHBC Stream to tell us what's on your mind. We want to talk sports. We want to get unruly. We want you to tell us what you think so we can argue. Anyway, when all that's said and done, please stay tuned for William's world-famous Around the XFL podcast and other projects that he's currently got in the works. Please visit WHBCstream.com, and thanks again for listening in.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM. Sports Radio 66. Sports Radio
HBC. And at 10:44, we are back on the William Haynes Show. Probably just going to go another 15 minutes, taking you up until the 11 o'clock hour. We did run a little over on yesterday's show, catching you up with all the action we missed during the weekend. Went almost 3 hours last night, so I think we'll split it down the middle and continue to average about 2 hours a show. A note that I just saw from Mark Topkin on Twitter during the break. As we mentioned, heading into this season, each game, you just do the math, each game in a 60-game season is about 2.7 games in a 162-game season. I basically rounded that up to 3. But Mark Tompkin did the math and said that the Rays' 4-1 start is roughly the equivalent of an 11-3 start. So you've got to feel great about the Rays if you are a fan of this team. I know I am, as the Dodgers have piled onto their lead even more. It is now 5-2 Dodgers with Corey Seager batting and the bases loaded. The Astros had to make a pitching change, but it doesn't look like it's going to make much of a difference. You love to see it. The Astros hopefully will be taking a loss here in Houston. So the Rays got to love their start. Gotten returns already from some offseason acquisitions. Already Jose Martinez, the past couple games has looked good. He's already hit his first home run and had a nice game here tonight. Went 2 for 4. Yoshi hit a home run on opening night. He was 2 for 4 tonight. Knocked in a run, or actually knocked in a couple of runs on a single in the 3rd inning. And then Hunter Renfroe, a couple of home runs last night. He went, I think, 0 for 3, 0 for 4 tonight. So unsure if we like him or not. Still kind of, the jury is still out on that. I pulled up the box scores of the past couple of games to see kind of what the Rays are going to do. As far as relievers go, we don't know how deep Charlie Morton is going to get into the game tomorrow. As we said, went 4 innings, relatively easy against the Blue Jays on opening day. That 5th inning proved to be trouble as he could not record an out. The Rays went on to lose that game 6-4 for their only loss of the year, and they win the next 4, of course. So today it was Fairbanks, Ryan Thompson, a couple of guys that aren't super high leverage, and then we go over to the high leverage. Nick Anderson only pitched 8 times, so he certainly could go. Chaz Rowe pitched tonight, but did not pitch last night, so he could go back-to-back if they needed him, and then Oliver Drake as well, only threw 11 times. So I think Nick Anderson will pitch in a high leverage spot tomorrow. I would anticipate that, and then maybe take your pick of Rowe or Drake, and then some guys that pitched last night but got the night off. Diego Castillo, in his first outing of the season, only pitched 10 times, so I would expect him to come into the ball game. And Jose Alvarado, I think, was pitching on a back-to-back last night, so I don't know if tonight was enough rest, but he could be in the mix as well. So I think the bullpen is in good shape, and you got to love your chances with Charlie Morton if it is the Charlie Morton of 2019. So if you can get 5 innings from him, you get an inning from, let's say, we'll just do the math right here, Castillo, Nick Anderson, wherever that comes, that is got you up to 7, maybe one from Alvarado, and then you take your pick of maybe if an Oliver Drake or a Chaz Rowe that you would want to put out there. I'm going to look to see who pitched in that Sunday win over the Blue Jays, as they had to pitch 10 innings instead of 9. That was the game that they got 3 out of Trevor Richards. Kittredge pitched 2 innings in that game. Aaron Loop, and it was Alvarado. That was the first game of a back-to-back. So I don't know if Alvarado will pitch because he was tonight he was getting rest from back-to-back. But Castillo, I would expect Nick Anderson, Diego Castillo. So I think the Rays will be fine in that regard if Charlie Morton can pitch well. An Atlanta Braves team that cannot be happy with themselves. They've only got 2 wins. They stole a win from the Mets and then won the next day 14-1. But in the 2 games against the Rays in the Trop have looked pretty abysmal. The pitchers have not performed well, and the offense has not really been enough to overcome any of that. As this Adam Kolarek, former Ray, pitching for the Dodgers, the Astros were able to get out of it. So the Dodgers lead by a score of 5-2 in the 5th. We won't be here on the air to see where that finishes out. Looking at some MLB news for the Yankees, you expect Masahiro Tanaka and Jordan Montgomery to pitch against the Red Sox. So Masahiro Tanaka getting his first start after getting hit in the head by a line drive on July 4th in their workout. So good to see for him. Not really the Yankees, of course. Unsure how that's going to play out for the Yankees, as they have missed the past couple games against the Phillies. If they're going to play a full 60, of course, I'm sure it'll come to play in their favor somehow, some way, that their winning percentage would just be a smidge higher than ours, even if the Rays win more games. That would be the most Rays-Yankees thing of all time, with about a third of the payroll and winning more games than the Yankees and still not making still not winning that division. That would be very fitting, I think. Wishful thinking, though. Let's hope that doesn't happen, but certainly a possibility. One thing I wanted to talk about, because I know I have some thoughts to say, I'm going to pull up the box score from tonight's Mets and Red Sox game. Just wanted to remind you one more time, final 10 minutes of the program. You can call the show 352-639-0036. One more time, 352-639-0036. We've got a line open at WHBC Stream is the Twitter, and the chat on Spreaker.com where you're listening to the stream is open as well. The Mets picking up another win against the Red Sox. Both scores were relatively the same. It was 7-4 last night, 8-3 here tonight. As we look in the scoring, it was Cano doubling, J.D. Davis homer, a Brandon Nimmo double, and a Jeff McNeil double. So good sight to see from them. I only mention the Mets because they're a team I follow relatively closely, as we are a bit of a New York show, but of course Tampa Bay sports comes first, but kind of mixing in some New York sports here as well. It was the rookie Peterson picking up his first win. I got to get his first name. It's David Peterson. to do him justice there. 5 2/3 innings. I know no one was expecting that from him tonight. They were expecting like 2 or 3. He only threw 78 pitches, and yikes, only 46 were for strikes. But he only walked 2. 7 hits, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. And then it was Smith out of the bullpen for an out. Justin Wilson, who has been good so far with 3 holds. Dylan Betances pitching a scoreless inning. And Hunter Strickland, a guy who has not been great for the Mets, came out to finish things off in a non-save situation. And the Red Sox, I guess, going with another opener. They got less than 3 innings out of their starter and then kind of pieced it from there. He gave up 3 earned runs. He took the loss. Hall, let me get his first name. I got to get better at that, learning these first names. Matt Hall. But to be fair, not a lot of well-known Red Sox pitchers this year. I predicted before the season got started that would be the death of the Red Sox, but I did not know that it was going to be this bad. They won an opening day, and you think maybe that they're going to be all right. But the offense has not done as much, and boy, oh boy, has the pitching staff been absolutely terrible. They've gone with some openers, but it doesn't look like anything's going to stick for them this year as they head to the cellar. I know that feels good to say if you're a Rays fan. The Red Sox heading to the bottom of the American League East as the Orioles look to be even better this year than the Boston Red Sox. And, of course, the Blue Jays are making a solid push as well. And then, of course, the Rays and the Yankees at the top. The Rays now, I believe, let me make sure if it is a game or a game and a half or whatever the case is. I want to make sure I get that right. Some other scores going on right now because final 7 minutes of the program, we're not going to do another update. In the 8th inning, it is still the Twins 6-3 over the Cardinals. In the 6th, still the Diamondbacks 3-0 over the Rangers. Dodgers 5, Astros 2. The Angels 2-1 over the Mariners in the 3rd. And now this game getting tied up in the 3rd. The Rockies and Athletics tied at 1 in an interesting little series that I'll probably talk a little bit tomorrow because a couple of teams that may surprise some people this year. And already in the 3rd inning, the Padres have run away with things, blowing up Jeff Samardzija. It is the Padres at 5-1 on the Giants. The Padres, a team that if they win this game, they'll be 4-1 and first place by just a hair in the National League West. I don't think they're going to win in that division, but I think in a year where the top 2 teams in each division are going to make the playoffs, I think we are looking at a postseason team in the San Diego Padres. They finally bring back the mustard and gold, and boy, did those uniforms look majestic. And then, as we mentioned, Cleveland, the Indians, sweeping the doubleheader. White Sox may be in a bit of trouble. Their pitching has not been good. The offense has not been enough to overcome, and the Indians and Terry Francona scraping out some wins here ugly. I'm not familiar with the White Sox and their manager and their hitters and everything like that, but I know the White Sox manager was not going to be ready to go, dealing with symptoms that he thought was COVID-19. He got tested. He was negative. That game ended up getting rained out, and there were some people on White Sox Twitter coming out and saying that, they would be better without him because of his lineup decision, so that may be a factor as well. But time to jump ship may be on the White Sox. Too early to tell, as I said last night. I think let's give it a week to see where things shake out. I think 2 weeks into the season, we will know, I think, for sure how this season is going to shake out. But in only a 60-game season, when a team is 4-1, they're in a much better place as a team that's 1-4, as is the case for the Cubs and the Reds, as the Cubs pick up another win over Cincinnati in Riverfront Stadium by a score of 8-5. I don't believe it. I don't believe it's Riverfront Stadium. I think that was the Reds' old stadium. I can't think of the name of their new park. Final 5 minutes of the program. I was looking to check. Yes, it is the Rays. They are a full game ahead of first place in the AL East. It's the Orioles, a game behind at 2-1, and the Yankees, a game behind at 2-1. Those two teams will face off tomorrow in Camden Yards for a 2-game set. So that'll be a good gauge. If the Orioles may be able to make a push, they'll be at home if they can upset the Yankees. If they can take one out of the two, I think we may be looking at an Orioles team ready to shock the world, not necessarily making the playoffs, but a team that's not going to be the worst in the league. The Tigers also in that conversation. They're a game above 500. So I think we may be looking at a team like the Red Sox that might be the worst in the league. Mariners in that conversation. Giants, maybe. They took 2 of 4 against the Dodgers in the first series, but like I said, it's still kind of a little bit early to tell. Anything else that I wanted to talk about here? Let's see. We talked about the Padres. I don't think anything from the scores, anything else that really stands out to me. I guess we could talk a little bit Mets. There was some heat that the Mets had to bring in Seth Lugo. They had the game in hand, and then the Red Sox made a little push to come back, and they had to put in Seth Lugo. The problem is Seth Lugo is their best bullpen piece, and because of some arm strain earlier in his career, they don't pitch him on back-to-backs, and they had to use him in a couple innings last night. So take him out of the picture. They did get the win tonight, thankfully for them. They're 3-2 now on the year. As they continue to make their push in a crowded NL East. They are tied for first place with the Marlins. I guess technically winning percentage is the Marlins, but they are not going to play. I guess that works out for them at 2-1, a .667 winning percentage. That'll probably be good for first place. I'm sure come the end of the week, that would be pretty funny, because the Mets could have 5 more wins than them, or something like that, and like still not have a good enough winning percentage. That would be kind of funny. Final couple minutes of the program. I guess I'll give you an official preview of tomorrow's game. We did already talk about it. Mike Soroka v. Morton. I think the Rays are set up well. The offense has been firing on all cylinders. No G-Man Choi tomorrow. Probably Yandy Diaz at first. I assume moving Yoshi down to third. If they want to go defense, probably Joey Wendell over there. But both lefties, I think you go with Yoshi at third, and then put Manny Margot back in the starting lineup. Put Manny Margot in left. Kiermaier in center as he got the day off tonight. And then, or no, he didn't get the day off. But Kiermaier in center, and then I guess Hunter Renfroe in right, or maybe if you wanted to put Brendan Lau in right and Wendell at second, you could do that as well. Adames, we assume, will be back in the lineup at shortstop, and then catching will probably be Mike Zunino. They are facing a guy in Mike Soroka that did do well against a tough Mets lineup in 6 innings. Unsure how he's going to do a second time out. Impressive his first start out to go 6 innings. There's not a lot of pitchers were able to do that. Of course, Carl Hendricks, being the guy that he is, went complete game on opening day. As we look to wrap up the show here, I would give the Rays the edge. They look good against the Braves. It is in Atlanta, so the Rays don't have that advantage of Braves players losing the baseball in the Tropicana Field Dome. But I like the Rays tomorrow. It is Morton v. Soroka. The bullpen is in really good shape. I think the lineup is good. I don't think Austin Meadows is ready to come up yet, but the outfield is going to be just fine. Remember, Austin Meadows and Randy Arozarena have both been cleared from COVID-19, so the Rays, as we know, are COVID-19 free, so we'll see them in the coming days. G-Man Choi is out for the next few. As always, we'll be on tomorrow right after the game, probably at 10 or so, and we'll see you then. HBC